So whether the ACC stays together through 2036 or whether a bomb goes off next week, there is skill in something. There is skill in using your instinct and using your wisdom and discernment from watching sports over a long period of time to kind of smell what's coming. And here's what's coming.
A few days ago, a report came out that the SEC would consider 2 of the top ACC schools for its conference and possibly a third. This comes at a time when some of the top programs in the ACC are exploring other conferences to join because of the revenue disparity between the Power of the 5 conference, which places the ACC at the bottom of the list, not only in revenue generated, but projected revenue. Hello everyone and welcome to No Huddle, where we discuss all things college football. So if you enjoy this kind of content, consider liking the video and subscribing for more. In May, reports came out that 7 of the ACC's 14 schools met with lawyers over the grant of rights deal to see how they could possibly get out of it, a deal that runs through 2036. Clemson, Florida State University, Miami, North Carolina State, Virginia, and Virginia Tech all explored the idea of leaving the ACC because of the low revenue generated by the ACC. The reported hope for the ACC was to remain semi-competitive in terms of money with the SEC and the Big Ten. But the problem is, when people came out and said the ACC was third, it was dead last. According to the average payout per member of the Power 5, the ACC was last from 2019 to now, and is projected to be last in 2029 by a marginal difference of almost $9 million. As you can see in the chart, the Big Ten lead, while the SEC holds down the second spot with a $7 million discrepancy. Then at the bottom is the ACC. So what this means is, based on averages, all the teams in the SEC and the Big Ten will receive an average of $30 million more than the average of the ACC teams. Think of it this way: Vanderbilt University will get more than Clemson, FSU, Miami, and UNC. No offense to NA Motors fans out there, but this is not fair if you're one of those schools, because the impact they have on college football is greater. In a recent report with James Parks, the SEC could further with the addition of Clemson and Florida State. This would be after Texas and Oklahoma State are in the conference for 2024. The possible third team would be UNC, but the SEC would not contemplate adding Miami. With this report coming out and the meetings that took place in May, this could cause the ACC to panic and give the schools more. During those meetings, it was reported between the ACC Commissioner James Phillips and the 7 schools looking at the grant of rights that they were all in this together. They all empathetically wanted the ACC to thrive and be a part of it. But with this report, what it does for Clemson, FSU, and possibly UNC, to have a media report come out that one of the 2 big conferences generating $30 million more than your conference is interested in adding you. Well, let's kind of dive into both scenarios here. This is not the first time that schools have looked at the grant of rights deal and contemplate the idea of changing conferences. It won't be the last either. But with these 7 schools, again, they are Clemson, FSU, Miami, UNC, NC State, Virginia, and Virginia Tech, pushing for more, it could have enough momentum to receive a higher payout, especially if you're Clemson and FSU, because the impact each program has in college football is significantly more than other teams in your conference and other conferences. Also, looking at teams like Virginia Tech and Miami, while neither team is the pinnacle of college football, relevancy there were times in the late 90s and early 2000s, when these schools were the powerhouses of college football. For UNC, since Mac Brown returned, the Tar Heels looked like a team that could enter the conversation of meaningful football. Sam Howell helped the UNC gain traction, and Drake May looks poised to push the Tar Heels into that conversation too. Briefly, while this is a college football channel, let's not forget the impact some of these schools have on college basketball either. So, in this scenario, as we at No Huddle see it, maybe this is a way for these 7 schools, dubbed the Magnificent 7, to get more. By the way, those are great movies. The Magnificent 7, both the 1960 with Charles Bronson and 2016 with Denzel Washington. No gunslinging and small towns under siege here though. This could be a way to gain leverage, and this report adds more leverage for Clemson and FSU to gain more revenue from the ACC. If we were to believe that these schools want to stay in the ACC and want want more money to do it. Since the James Parks report mentioned Clemson, FSU, and possibly UNC, we will still stick with these teams. Scenario 2, those 3 colleges leave and join the SEC for greater revenue. In this, we see a much stronger SEC, maybe even one that climbs to the top of the Power 5 conferences by adding the powerhouse that is Clemson football. It makes sense for the Tigers to join the SEC as they develop rivalries with some of the biggest teams in the SEC like Georgia, Alabama, Auburn, and South Carolina. A move to the SEC may add more of these games to the schedule and boost the SEC pockets because of how marketable those games are and the national intrigue around them. Games like LSU and Clemson in a battle of the superior cats happen more often. I mean, it is the Southeastern Conference, right? So with a portion of these schools in the Southeast, gaining Clemson just adds to that regional control for the SEC. It makes perfect sense geographically. How much more Southeast can it get for the continental United States than Florida? For the Seminoles, the same geographic argument can be made too. Southeast territory where there are already a ton of teams in the SEC. Southeastern Conference, the state that is furthest south and east. Duh. With Clemson added to the mix, there is still a rivalry between the Tigers and the Seminoles. As it always was a conference rivalry, still getting that. FSU also has rivals in the SEC they already play. Florida. If SSU joins, then the SEC hosts an intriguing battle for the state between its 2 teams instead of the ACC having a majority of the state. Taking away FSU from the ACC is a huge leverage gain for the SEC in that state. Also, rivalries with Georgia and Alabama intensify with FSU in the SEC, and the possibility of more with the likes of LSU, Auburn, and South Carolina. Those 2 schools coming back to the SEC could be enough to vault the SEC into the top spot of project revenue, as going back to the chart, SEC sits $7 million behind the Big Ten. With a huge $30 million gap between the SEC and the ACC, both juggernauts could change conferences and see sizable revenue gains. Let's also talk about the third team that the SEC may have interest in, UNC. The Tar Heels just recently took a step forward to enter the college football relevancy with the return of head coach Mack Brown. During the Sam Howell years, UNC made itself into a respectable football program. With Drake May at the helm, this relevancy could improve if UNC builds on the momentum the team has for May's sophomore season. The key for UNC will be building a better brand of football with May and maintaining it after his departure. If so, then they can be a nice addition to the SEC. But maintaining college football success after May, who could be gone after his sophomore season, is a big if. What is interesting about the UNC outside of the realm of college football is if it joins the SEC, then the SEC gains one of the most revered college basketball programs ever established. However, the basketball rivalries won't be as amazing because Duke won't be in the ACC, and that is arguably the biggest rivalry in college sports. UNC basketball versus Duke basketball. The SEC is not a college basketball conference. Come to think of it, arguably the strongest college basketball conference is the ACC, when talking about the possibility of $30 million for the Tar Heels. However, staying in a stacked college basketball conference does not sound that important. Again, UNC is not the best college football program in the ACC, and if the Tar Heels join the SEC, like the rumors say, they may just be an average team in the conference. Marketing an average team with a huge name value like the Tar Heels could be easy for the SEC, or it could be a challenge because of the lack of success in college football for UNC. But there is an upside for UNC in the SEC. The SEC gains from UNC is a rival for Clemson and FSU football, something already established from the ACC. Also, with the recent play between UNC and Clemson in the 2022 ACC Championship, there is sure to be some marketability the SEC capitalizes on. UNC does not offer much in terms of rivalries with the top teams like Alabama and LSU, simply because the football programs do not match in terms of skill. But the UNC can easily have a geographic rivalry with the Georgia Bulldogs. Also, the Tar Heels play the Gamecocks semi-frequently already, so there is a new conference rivalry. If nothing else, It is a battle of the Carolinas that should interest fans and is an easy marketing ploy. With the college football season fast approaching, and this being the first news of realignment since May, these could be more rumors to simply drive up the price for the 7 schools in the ACC. Again, the 7 being Clemson, FSU, Miami, UNC, NC State, Virginia Tech. Or these rumors that the SEC is interested in those 3 teams come to fruition soon. It won't happen anytime in 2023, we are willing to bet. But as the season progresses, let's see how much realignment is mentioned. Let us know what you think in the comments. Would this be a case of the rich getting richer? Or does the ACC hold on to these schools? Does the ACC and commissioner come forth and say they lied about being 3rd in revenue? Who would you be most excited for if any of the 7 teams left the ACC? Be sure to like the video and subscribe to No Huddle for more college football content.